And this is kind of where I guess open-mindedness kind of comes back into this. Is if they bring us scientific evidence, then we're going to have to consider it.
Right. But at that point, it becomes natural.
But at that point, it ceases being supernatural and becomes natural. And then I really like that, and that's something that a lot of people seem to forget, is that natural versus supernatural are constantly changing definitions as our understanding of what constitutes natural increases. Mm-hmm. And the way you do that is through the scientific method and evidence. It's not by having Sylvia Brown come to your casino. Just saying.
Right.
But
shall we give out our phone number again?
Oh, right. If you would like to call us and have something you'd like to ask us, or I guess maybe another drive-by type situation, our phone number is 206-421-5658. And the thing is, one thing that we got is is the religion is off limits for criticism, and I'd really like to talk about that.
Right. That's one of the problems we frequently have, is that in our society, it's just not acceptable to criticize other people's religious beliefs. We've been raised that way. They have a hard time accepting that rational criticism mm-hmm. or just any type of criticism whatsoever.
Now, we're not talking criticism in the case of well, your religion is not good, or it's actually sort of debating and asking questions and questioning the evidence. There's rational criticism, and then there's emotional criticism, and I think they're a little bit worried about sort of the emotional criticism, and that's where this politeness kind of comes in, and it's really killing off the debate. And so we have to realize, as atheists and religious people, and theists and atheists alike, is that there's two types of criticism. There's emotional criticism, where we get mad at each other. Then there's a type of criticism where we talk about the evidence. And if you would like to talk about that evidence with us in person, we will be at the Ram at Northgate Mall at 4:30. Please stop by. We will be there. The crew will be there.
You're welcome to join us.
This is usually where we do the debriefing, and it'll be a lot of fun. We've had a couple people show up, and it's been a really great time. Come on by, and like I said, come on by, come friendly. We're not interested in having screaming matches in a restaurant. Well, not Definitely. Real interested in getting thrown out.
Yeah. So, do we have any more news items?
Well, no, we got more material, though.
One of the things that for me, when someone says that, or they question me about why I do not believe in a God, they actually suggest that I lack the cognitive ability to perceive a supernatural creator.
Oh, this is the God-shaped hole argument, isn't it?
Oh, or you mean the God-shaped puddle?
Yeah.
Kind of like that. For myself, I actually lack depth perception. But once I was made aware of this deficit, I studied how people who have depth perception are able to use the parallax effect to perceive depth. So even though I actually lack this physical ability, I learned how to adapt, just like people who are colorblind.
And this extends to our understanding of the universe as well. Like I said, the expanding definition of natural is, once upon a time, natural didn't include things like electrons, things like radio waves, and we still cannot directly perceive them. But we've developed technology and tools through evidence mm-hmm. of what those things are, and so just because you don't have depth perception, and just because I can't perceive electrons, or just because I have to wear glasses, doesn't necessarily mean that these things don't exist.
Right.
And actually, we've got a caller, Michael from Federal Way. How are you doing this afternoon?
Oh, hi. I'm doing okay.
Good. What you got for us?
Well, I think that atheists are the wiser ones of the two. I mean, because back when they were like ancient Greeks and Romans, and they had their sun gods and their moon gods and their gods of this and gods of that,
mm-hmm.
they were thinking that just because it existed, it must have a god behind it, something
right.
like that,
Right.
And then when you tell a Christian there's not a God, then they say, look around you. How do you explain this? How do you explain the moon and the stars and the earth and that kind of stuff, How do you explain how you got here, how this got here? Well, that's the same. We're going back to the sun god again. You think just because something exists, it must have a god behind it.
Right. That's straight back to God of the gaps. I mean, is the ancient?
Well, what I think is that there's some other form of creation that is way beyond our understanding, and we might never figure it out. But when we do, we'll see how foolish we were thinking that just because something exists, it's got to have a god behind it.
Okay. What do you mean by this other level of creation? I'm kind of curious.
I mean, there could have been something that we just don't understand.
Well, there are quite a few things we don't understand.
Yeah,
There's still a lot of debate about the eventual fate of the universe.
100 years ago, people could not fathom even a fax machine. You know, I mean, that's just a fax machine. And 100 years ago, they couldn't fathom people having cell phones, walking around with plugged to their ear and talking with nothing in their hand.
Right.
And so it's just something that's beyond understanding, and I don't know what it is, or I'd be a genius. But I think that just because something's around doesn't mean there has to be a God behind it.
Exactly.
You were saying?
Well, and I was going to say that oftentimes we're told that a God exists eternally, but why is it not possible then for the universe just to exist eternally?
Right. It seems like they have a fixed length to their ladder, where the God is the top of that ladder, and they're having trouble perceiving that they can't seem to think that if the ladder is that high, might it not be a little bit higher, or might it not be a little bit lower? And these things don't really.
And I have another thought too.
Okay, Go ahead.
Okay, now people who think that God is all powerful and all this, God can do this, God can do anything He wants to do, then why doesn't God? I always ask the Christians, why doesn't God, if there is a devil, why doesn't God...
Oh, oops. Are you still there?
Still there?
Michael?
I'm here.
Okay, we just had a little...
Why doesn't God stop the devil, you know, or kill the devil or whatever, and why doesn't He stop cancer? Or stop leukemia, or stop, you know what I mean?
Right. Well, we have as atheists, we have a reasonably simple answer to that question, is that there's no...
Because there's no God.
Right. For an answer to that question from their perspective, you'd really need to, basically ask a theologian. But that's something we have to contend with, is if this God is as wonderful as they say, we've got the whole problem of evil thing again.
Well, it also, of course, begs the question about God being a omnipotent, omniscient being.
Right.
In order for you to be omniscient and omnipotent requires that you actually are an infinite being, and just the very definition of infinity makes that impossible. It's an impossible state to achieve.
And when I ask the Christians, why doesn't God stop all the bad things, they say, oh, that's just His way of testing us.
And then that comes to the question of why create humans in the first place. Thank you very much, Michael.
Right. And actually that does raise a question. Why the charade? Why are we being tested?
Yeah.
What's the point of that?
Doesn't the universe sort of... Yeah, with the evolution, and there's testing going on, but it's just trying to survive, basically.
Correct.
And then trying to give it some other meaning so that it can be understandable to you. And like he was saying, a lot of his questions is ancient civilizations, and they needed explanations for why things happen. That's part and parcel God of the gaps. That's what God of the gaps is. Why does the sun rise every day? God.
Right.
Why did the volcano choose to explode when it did? God or gods was angry at somebody.
Right.
And as our naturalistic understanding of the universe increases, the gaps get smaller and smaller, and the places where God comes through eventually shrink and close. And I think that's that as our natural, as I feel, as our naturalistic understanding of the universe expands,